Hello everyone. So now we come with a new lecture series on magnetism in condensed matter. So this particular video will be the introductory part for the magnetism in condensed matter. So the first unit will be about the magnetism introduction, where we will be study about magnetic moments, and then we will apply classical and quantum mechanics to understand magnetism. So let's talk about this magnetic moment. So in nature we can have magnetic moment as isolated or interacting. So these moments, they can be interacting with other moments or they can be interacting with the surrounding. Now in nature we have a diversity of interactions, and using which we have a rich variety of magnetic properties in the real system, which we will be going to study in this particular lecture series. So in the first video we will be going to recall some facts about magnetic moments from elementary classical and quantum physics. Then in the coming lectures, we will discuss how magnetic moments behaves when large number of them are placed in a solid, but they are isolated from each other and the surrounding. And followed by that, we will see the effect of their immediate environment. And finally, we will discuss the set of possible magnetic interactions between magnetic moments. And in the classical electrodynamics, we can equate this with a current loop where current I is flowing around an elementary oriented loop of area, let's say ds. So in that case, the magnetic moment, which is given by d mu vector, it is given by I times ds vector, where ds vector is the vector representing this area and its direction is along the normal to this particular area. And this direction you can find using right hand rule. And the units of magnetic moments are in ampere meter square. Now this current loop, it is equivalent to a magnetic dipole, which we can represent by this arrow representing magnetic moment vector mu, and this behaves analogously to an electric dipole, which has positive and electric charges separated by a small distance. So therefore it is possible to imagine a magnetic dipole as an object which consists of two magnetic monopoles of opposite magnetic charges. They are separated by a small distance in the same direction as this vector ds. Now a magnetic material, it can be considered as made up of small current carrying loops like this, and the net magnetic moment of this material, it can be considered by summing up the magnetic moments of lots of infinitely small current loops. Or we can consider that if current I is flowing through the outer surface, so in that case the net magnetic moment is given by I times integration of ds vector. So therefore, for a loop of finite size, we can calculate the magnetic moment mu by summing up all the magnetic moments of lots of equivalent infinitesimal current loops which are distributed throughout the area of this loop. Now all the currents from neighboring infinitely small loops, they cancel, leaving only the current running around the parameter of the loop. Now let's talk about magnetic moments and angular momentum. Now a current loop occurs because of the motion of one or more electrical charges, and we know that these charges are particles of mass m. So therefore these charges of charge q and mass m, they are revolving around a loop. So therefore the orbital motion of mass will give rise to angular momentum L. So therefore there is a associated angular momentum with this current loop, and also we have noticed that there is a associated magnetic moment with this current loop. Now in atoms, the magnetic moment mu is associated with an orbital electron lies in the same direction as this angular momentum L of the electron, and it is proportional to the angular momentum. So this mu is given by gamma times L, where this gamma is known as gyromagnetic ratio. So therefore, this a current carrying loop, it acts as a gyroscope. Now the relation between the magnetic moment and the angular momentum is demonstrated by Einstein-de Haas effect. So this particular effect was the only experimental work published by Albert Einstein, and it was carried out in year 1915 in collaboration with de Haas, who was the son-in-law of Lorentz, about whom you must have studied in electrodynamic theory, about the famous Lorentz force. Let me first show you the experimental setup for this particular effect. So here you can see the experimental setup for Einstein-de Haas effect. Here, a ferromagnetic rod, it attached it to this quartz wire, which acts as a sensitive torsion balance. Here, this soft ferromagnetic rod is supported by a thin quartz fiber, which is attached to a mirror, and the magnet is suspended within a solenoid connected to a reversible DC power source. And this current I is strong enough to create magnetic field to saturate the cylinder's magnetization in either up or down direction. This quartz wire serves as a very sensitive torsion balance. So here the key concept is the magnetic moment mu is proportional to the angular momentum L. So initially this ferromagnetic rod is at rest and unmagnetized, and finally it is magnetized along its axis with this magnetic field along its axis given by mu naught Ni. This is the magnetic field inside this solenoidal coil, and using which it is magnetized either up or down direction. Now this current is strong enough to saturate this ferromagnetic rod, so that after the application of this external magnetic field, there is internal magnetic moment inside this rod. And as we know from this relation, if there is magnetic moment, then there is angular momentum associated with it. Now you have noticed that initially at t equal to 0, there was no angular momentum. So the initial angular momentum was 0, but after time t, when this current I is switched on, there is a final angular momentum which is given by mu divided by gamma. So therefore, in order to conserve the total angular momentum, the rod, it begins to turn about its axis in the opposite sense. Now, if somehow you can measure the angular momentum of this rod, then you can calculate the angular momentum associated with the atomic magnetic moment, and hence you can calculate this gyromagnetic ratio. So therefore, this Einstein-de Haas effect, it is a rotation induced by magnetization. So this Einstein-de Haas effect is rotation induced by magnetization. There is also a reverse effect of this particular effect, and this is known as Barnett's effect, which is a completely opposite of this particular effect, where magnetized is induced by rotation. So there you rotate this particular rod, and you will see that this rod, it will get magnetized. So both these phenomena are, that is Einstein-de Haas effect and Barnett's effect, they demonstrate the magnetic moments are associated with angular momentum L. Now let's see how, using this particular effect, you can calculate the Landé's G factor. We will show in the coming video that the gyromagnetic ratio is given by minus the Landé G factor times E divided by 2 mass of electrons times C, which is equal to G times gamma naught. And this G, it can be equal to 1 for electron orbital motion, but equal to 2 for electron spin motion. So now this ferromagnetic rod, I can assume it as a cylinder with magnetic moment mu is equal to the magnetization times the volume, and which will be equal to magnetization times pi r square L. So now if this magnetic dipole is associated with charge circulation, then this mu must be equal to gamma times L, and the maximum kinetic energy of rotation is equal to L square divided by 2I, where this I represents the moment of inertia of the cylinder, and this is equal to half mr square, and we can write this in terms of the density of this rod, which will be equal to half rho pi L r raised to power 4. Now this maximum kinetic energy is converted into potential energy of the torsion balance at its maximum angular displacement, given by half torsion constant k and then theta max square. So therefore, if you equate these two energies, then you will get the formula for G factor as G equal to m divided by gamma naught, then under root of 2 pi L divided by k rho times 180 divided by pi into theta max, where theta max is expressed in degrees and is the maximum deflection of the reflected laser beam. Now, if you reverse the current through the solenoidal coil, that it will reverse the magnetization in the ferromagnetic rod, which should create an angular displacement in the opposite direction as the angular momentum of the charge carriers is reversed. So this was the first method using which we were able to find the experimental value of Landé factor. All we have to do is just make the rod of that particular ferromagnetic material and put inside this particular setup. Here you can see the experimental setup for the Haas effect, and I will put the link of this particular simulation in the description and the comment box. So here you can see this blue rod, it is representing the ferromagnetic substance, and it is attached with this torsion fiber, which is attached to a mirror, and a laser beam is fired on this mirror, and the maximum deflection of the reflected laser beam is recorded. Initially, when there is no solenoidal current, so this laser beam is reflected back and the theta max is 0. But as soon as we switched on the solenoidal current in the clockwise direction, then you can see the laser beam is reflected at an angle of theta max equal to 1.22 degrees. So we have calculated the value of Landé factor from the formula derived earlier as 2.01. So this theta max angle, it is a proof that this particular rod is rotated. So this means that there is a relation between the magnetic moment and the angular momentum associated with a ferromagnetic material. Now, if we reverse the direction of the current, then you can see that this rod is rotated in the opposite direction with the maximum theta as 1.22, and using again this, we have calculated the Landé factor. Now we will go to next topic, that is precession of magnetic moment. Now we will consider that this magnetic moment mu is placed in an external magnetic field B, which makes an angle theta. So therefore the energy of magnetic moment is given by minus mu dot B. Now at equilibrium the energy must be minimized. So in that situation, this magnetic moment, it must align itself to the direction of external magnetic field. So in order to align this magnetic moment in the direction of magnetic field B, there should be a torque G which is acting on this magnetic moment, which must be equal to mu cross B. So this G, it represents the torque acting on this magnetic moment. Now as we have seen earlier that since this magnetic moment mu is also associated with the angular momentum L, by equation mu is equal to gamma times L, and also we know that this torque is related with the angular momentum as the rate of change of angular momentum. So therefore this G is given by rate of change of angular momentum. So we can substitute the value of L in the equation of G as 1 divided by gamma, then d mu by dt. Also this G vector is equal to mu cross B. So this means this mu cross B is equal to 1 divided by gamma d mu by dt. Or in a simplified form, we can write the equation of motion for this magnetic moment as gamma mu cross B. So this equation represents the equation of motion of magnetic moments in external field. So this equation tells us that the change in mu is perpendicular to both mu and B. So therefore, rather turning mu towards B, the magnetic field causes the direction of mu to precess around B. So this particular magnetic moment, it will precess around this external magnetic field. And this is the situation which is analogous to spinning a gyroscope or a spinning top. Now we can break this particular equation in the component wise as mu x dot is equal to gamma b mu y, and mu y dot is equal to minus gamma b mu x, and then mu dot z is equal to 0. So this means that in the z component of the magnetic moment, there is no variation. So this implies that the z component of magnetic moment is constant, but the x and y component of magnetic moment, they are oscillating. We can solve these two differential equations to get the solutions of mu x and mu y as a function of time as mu sine theta cos omega lt, and for mu y we get mod of mu sine theta and then sine omega lt, where this omega l is known as Larmor's precession frequency, and it is equal to gamma times b. And this third component, mu z of t, is equal to mod mu cos theta, which is independent of time. So note that this gyromagnetic ratio, it is a constant of proportionality which connects the magnetic moment with angular momentum L and the precession frequency omega L with the external magnetic field B. So therefore the phenomena of precession, it hints that magnetic fields don't just causes the moments to line up, but can induce a variety of dynamical effects. This is it for today, and we will continue this topic in the next lecture. Thank you for watching this video.